Total Consecration to Jesus through Mary as instructed by St. Louis de Montfort. And so let us read the first preparation before the 3 weeks. Those who wish to enter into this particular devotion, after having in the first part of the preparation for the reign of Jesus Christ, employed 12 days at least in emptying themselves of the spirit of the world, which is contrary to the spirit of Jesus Christ, should employ these 3 weeks in filling themselves with Jesus Christ by the Holy Virgin. This is all he basically gives to us. When we're into the spiritual life, what we have to do is we have to start figuring things out and taking these simple instructions and applying them to our own selves. So today I'd like to consider a few things as I enter into this devotion of spending at least 12 days. In fact, our whole life should be a spirit of detachment from the world. But I thought of a few simple considerations I'd like to consider here. Recently, people have talked to me about the 3 days of darkness, which is in prophecy and even in sacred scripture. And I've been thinking and meditating upon this because, personally, I believe we could see the 3 days of darkness in about 3 or 4 years. Whether I'm right or not is not important. The thing is, we should all consider one day each and every one of us will see the end of the world. That is the day the world ends for me. That's the day of my death. That's the end of the world I have to worry about. Of course, 3 days of darkness is not the end of the world. It is a major transition from this time of great apostasy to the universal conversion. It's a rather dramatic transition. But as far as I'm concerned with the true devotion and total consecration, the 3 days of darkness I'm going to now call the Great Detachment. On these 3 days, the world and its luxuries, which we are filled up to an unimaginable degree. If we could go back a century, a millennium, 5 millennia, and explain the luxury the average person can live in parts of the world today, they'd consider we had gone totally nuts. But the world and all of these luxuries will fail us at the 3 days of darkness. So if we want to prepare for the 3 days of darkness, we should prepare by detaching ourselves from the world now. Okay? And so I thought of another thing from St. Augustine says, a man who progresses during prosperity has to await times of adversity before he can learn what progress he has made. Now let's stop and think about that a minute and return to St. Augustine. When he is rich in the goods of the world, he may be certain that he places no stock in them. But when they're taken from him, that's when he discovers that they have a hold on him. For generally, when we have them, we think we don't love them. But when we don't have them, then we discover whether or not we love them or not. And that's what St. Augustine is trying to explain to us. I can say, I am detached from the world. Well, I live in all this comfort and luxury. But as I observed 12 years ago in instruction preparing for Lent, all of us need a good fire to show us whether we're really detached or not. Stop and think what happens when your house burns down. Your house just burns clear to the ground. We see these things after tornadoes, fires, disasters of all kinds. They're looking for that one little picture, that one little thing they're still attached to. I can understand why you want a picture of the family from 10 years ago. It's a good reminder. But it is an attachment to the world. And I'm not telling you to get rid of your pictures or anything. But just stop and think. Sit back during these 12 days, or if you take longer, take a day, walk around the house, and think, what would I do if this all burnt down on me? Now let us consider another thing. And this might get us detached from the world more than anything else. Where is hell? Think about it. It is in the center of the world. If we do not detach ourselves from the world now while we are alive, how are we going to survive the great detachment from death? Oh, yes, the world ends for us in one respect. The world, its pleasures, its luxuries, they're gone. But if we wish to ascend to heaven, we must detach ourselves from the world now. Otherwise, if we are attached, chained to this world, we will find that we will descend to the center of the earth. Not a Jules Verne book, Journey to the Center of the Earth. No, we will descend to hell, which is at the center of the earth, for eternal misery. Eternal misery. Let's think about that a minute. Okay, let us return. To rise to heaven after death, we must rise above the world now. Okay? If we're not totally successful in that rise, that's what purgatory is for. We will descend for a time to actually get our worldliness literally burnt off of us. However, purgatory is a very hopeful doctrine. Because when we go into purgatory, there's one big difference between purgatory and hell. In purgatory, there is an exit, and we know that one day we will exit purgatory to detach totally from the world and rise to eternal joy in heaven. And I can't describe the joys of heaven. St. Paul, who was in the outskirts of heaven, he couldn't describe it. But think about that. But let us return to detachment from the world. And I have another consideration on this. The spiritual man judges all things, St. Paul says to the Corinthians. He also says things must be spiritually examined. We have worldly thinking, we have spiritual thinking, and they are utterly opposed. The worldly thinking people are attached to the goods of the world, the thoughts of the world, the opinions of the world, and will find themselves attached eternally to the hell in the center of the earth. The spiritual man rises above the world, and he thinks things out spiritually. He judges things in the light. What does this mean to me for eternity? And let us remember, what is eternity? 1,000,000 years from now, and we're in eternity. Neighbor punches us. What time is it? It is eternity. We cannot measure eternity with time. 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000,000 years, 250,000,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000,000 years. We have these big numbers we can't even understand, which are thrown around us all the time. If we apply them to eternity, we still haven't even got the foggiest idea of the length of eternity, because eternity is just that. It never ends. The world will end for us at our death. But let us start examining things spiritually. I believe that's what St. Louis de Montfort is saying, that, hey, you got to take 12 days. Some of us, it may take the rest of our lives to transfer from worldly thinking to spiritual thinking, to detach from the world and attach to Jesus through Mary, which we'll do later on. Now, I've got an experiment which I'd like all of us to do sometime in the middle of this preparation. This might give us an example, an idea. Get out a bull ice cream. Buy your favorite flavor here. Your ice cream isn't your thing. Find something you really like to eat, okay? All right. Make that big bowl of ice cream, all right? Savor it. Enjoy it. Now let's think about this, okay? Maybe we should start a timer or a clock to see how long it takes to eat this bowl of ice cream. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. All right, finish the bowl of ice cream. Don't take a drink of water, nothing. Just finish the bowl of ice cream and let that stay in your tongue, and then we get this bitter aftertaste. This pleasure that we enjoyed intensely for a quarter of an hour, let's say. After a few minutes, it leaves a bad aftertaste. Earthly pleasures end. Think about it. Earthly pleasures end. Let's stop and think about it. Let's return now and think about just kind of how crazy worldly people are. And let's take an extreme example. All right, you're taking a long trip. It's going to take several days to get from your one place to another. So let's think about this, man. Okay, it's been a long day driving. Okay, you pull into a motel. They give you the key to the room and all that, and you unlock the door, and go in. You get into this room, you look around. That's the ugliest shade of green I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know how I can sleep with this ugly shade of green. And so, you're tired, long day, but you run out, you get a gallon of paint, a paintbrush, and you come back. You stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning repainting that room, the most beautiful color you can imagine. All right? You get done repainting the room, that beautiful color, go right straight to bed and sleep. You get up the next morning, check out a motel, get in the car, and drive off. Does this sound kind of crazy? I've invested all this time to repaint a room, only to close my eyes and not even be able to see the walls and sleep. As soon as I wake up, I hop in the car and I'm gone. Isn't that how us worldly people act? And I have to say, I got worldliness. That's why I'm doing these 12 days. Worldly people act in this manner. We invest all of our time in something we're going to leave in a few minutes, a few hours, a few years. Stop and think about it. I'll turn 50 this fall. How many more years have I got? 10, 20 more years? And then what? Eternity. Where am I going to spend that eternity? Heaven or hell? What I do these 12 days, detaching the world, will help me make the proper decision to spend eternity in heaven. Now, there's one practice I'd like you to consider doing. And this helps put things in focus, because one of the things that puts things in focus is how we spend our time. So I want you to take 1 week, 168 hours, and keep track of how you spend each one of those 168 hours. Now, to do this properly, don't change anything yet. You say, what? Well, I thought you wanted me to do holy hours and rosaries. No, don't change a thing. I want you to do the 168 hours as you live your life today. We've got 12 days to do this practice, and only 7 of them are required for this. At the end of the 7 days, the 168 hours, then we do an examination of conscience, which is actually part of the first week of Total Consecration, as we'll see. We do an examination of conscience. We should take a look back at that 160 hours. How did I spend that 168 hours? How much time did I spend sleeping, eating, drinking, watching the television, on the computer, spiritual reading, rosary, prayers? If I'm married, how much time do I spend with my spouse? If I have children, how much time do I spend? I mean, quality time with my children. Sitting down in front of a 30-minute sitcom with the wife and kids is not quality time in my book. If the TV is on, it's not quality time with the family. Quality time with the family is spending time with the whole family, a child, your spouse. Take a look. Then, it's time to start making some resolutions. How could I spend my time better? And with that thought, I've given you a few things to do. Enjoy the vanilla ice cream, and think about that. Enjoy your next week, then think about it. What does this mean for eternity? Benedicta potentis, Patris et Filii, Spiritus Sancti, Sed super vos in semper. Amen.